I never thought life could hit me this hard. One week I was worrying about payroll and late invoices, and the next, I was staring at my 15-year-old son hooked up to tubes in a hospital bed. The doctors had said the word no parent ever wants to hear: leukemia. My wife sobbed quietly in the corner, and I just sat there, frozen, my phone buzzing in my pocket with messages from the office. You know, it's strange. When tragedy strikes, you'd think business problems would fade into the background, but they don't. They actually get louder. While I was holding my boy's hand, watching machines breathe for him, my company was bleeding cash. One of our biggest clients, Harrison Steel, was months late on a $200,000 payment. I had 20 workers counting on me for their paychecks, suppliers calling every day asking when I'd catch up. And now, on top of that, medical bills stacked like bricks on my desk. I felt trapped, torn in two directions: save my business or be the father my son needed me to be. And deep down, I was terrified I'd fail at both. My name's Tom Reynolds. I run a small manufacturing company just outside Cleveland, metal parts for construction equipment. It's not glamorous, not the kind of business you brag about at cocktail parties, but it's honest work. For 20 years, I'd built it from nothing, starting with a rented garage and one drill press. By 2020, we had a plant, 20 employees, and a reputation for never missing a deadline. But when Ethan, my son, got sick, everything I'd worked for suddenly felt fragile. I'd sit in that hospital room, staring at him while scrolling through emails from suppliers threatening to cut me off. My foreman Joe texted me every morning with production updates, but all I could think was, who cares about machine parts when your kid might not make it to his 16th birthday? Still, I couldn't ignore the numbers. Our bank account was shrinking. Harrison Steel's payment, $200,000, was supposed to cover payroll, utilities, and a new piece of equipment we desperately needed. Without it, we were living on fumes. And every new medical bill was another gut punch. At night, driving home from the hospital, I'd grip the steering wheel so hard my hands hurt, asking myself, which fire do I put out first? Desperation makes you do things you swore you'd never do. For me, that meant calling Ray Carter. Ray was an old acquaintance from back in the early days when we both hustled around trade shows trying to land clients. Except Ray. He'd always played the fast game. Flashy suits, expensive cars. The kind of guy who ordered the most expensive steak just to prove he could. We hadn't spoken in years, but I remembered seeing his posts on LinkedIn, something about private investments and alternative funding. I didn't like him back then, and truth be told, I didn't trust him now. But when you're drowning, you grab at any rope thrown your way, even if it's covered in thorns. We met at a steakhouse downtown. He showed up in a tailored gray suit, gold watch gleaming under the dim light. He grinned like he'd already won. "Tom, I hear you're in a bind," he said, swirling his whiskey glass. I forced a smile. "You could say that." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "I can float you $150,000. No banks, no endless paperwork. Quick and clean. But I'll need 20% of your future profits." My stomach turned. It was a terrible deal. But Ethan's next treatment required $50,000 up front. I stared at that napkin contract for a long time. Ray had literally written the terms down between bites of his ribeye, like it was nothing, just another casual conquest. 20% of my life's work for a loan that wouldn't even cover half my debts. But I kept picturing Ethan, pale and fragile in that hospital bed. The way he squeezed my hand every time the nurses came in with another needle. I couldn't let money stop his treatment. So I signed. My hand was trembling as I scrawled my name on the bottom of that stupid napkin. Ray smirked, tucked it into his jacket pocket, and said, "Smart move, Tom. You'll thank me later." At first, it worked. His money kept the doors open. I made payroll, covered utilities, and handed over a check at the hospital without my wife knowing where the funds really came from. For a few weeks, I actually slept at night. But then Harrison Steel filed for bankruptcy. Just like that, the $200,000 we'd been waiting on evaporated. And suddenly, Ray wasn't just a lender. He was circling like a shark, showing up at the factory, strolling through the shop floor as if he owned the place. At first, the guys on the floor thought Ray was just a curious visitor. But soon he started asking questions, real questions. What's your weekly output? How many hours do these machines run? What's your profit margin on this line? Joe, my foreman, pulled me aside one afternoon. His face was tight, jaw clenched. Tom, you sure TH? I tried to brush it off, but inside, panic clawed at me. I'd let a wolf into the barn, and now he was sniffing around every corner. Ray cornered me in my office a few days later. He dropped into the chair across from my desk without even asking. Tom, he said, lacing his fingers like some corporate executive, you've got potential here, but you need structure, professional management, someone who knows how to scale. I kept my face blank, but my pulse was racing. He wasn't hinting. He was positioning himself. You're drowning, he added, leaning closer. Let me take the reins. Sell me controlling interest, 51%. I'll handle headaches. You focus on your son. It sounded like mercy, but it felt like theft. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in a hospital parking lot, engine off, rain tapping on the windshield, just staring at my reflection in the glass. 51%. That meant handing him the keys to everything I'd built. My name on the building would mean nothing. My workers, guys who trusted me, would be answering to him. But then I thought of Ethan. His face was so thin now, his hair falling out in clumps. The chemo had drained him of every ounce of energy. Some nights, he couldn't even hold his head up to talk. And here I was, worrying about machines and contracts. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. What kind of father was I if I chose pride in my company over being at his bedside? The dilemma ripped me in two. If I refused Ray, the company might fold and I'd have nothing. No income, no insurance, no way to cover treatments. If I agreed, I'd save Ethan's care, but lose my life's work. When I finally walked inside that hospital, my wife looked up at me with tired eyes. Everything okay at the plant? She asked. Elite. Yeah, everything's fine. A few days later, just when I was ready to give in to Ray's offer, my phone buzzed with a call from Mike Daniels. Mike owned a small family-run construction outfit in Akron. His dad had done business with my dad back in the 70s, and we kept in touch over the years. Tom, he said, I've been hearing rumors. Folks saying you're in trouble. My stomach dropped. In this business, rumors kill faster than bankruptcy filings. I braced for the blow, another client pulling out. But instead, Mike cleared his throat and said, Look, my father always told me your family was straight shooters. We don't want to see you go under. How about this? We'll prepay for a year's worth of parts. 80 grand. You keep building, and when we need the equipment, it's already covered. I nearly dropped the phone. 80,000. No interest. No strings. Just trust. I walked outside the hospital that night and cried like a child. It wasn't enough to erase all the problems, but it was enough to stand tall against Ray. Enough to show him I wasn't desperate anymore. The next morning, I called Ray and told him his offer was off the table. Ray didn't take it well. He stormed into my office 2 days later, face red, voice sharp. You think some small-town builder can save you? He snapped. You'll be crawling back to me in a month, Tom. Mark my words. I didn't flinch. For the first time in weeks, I actually felt steady. I slid a folder across the desk. Copies of every threatening message he'd sent. Witness statements from Joe and 2 other workers who'd overheard his little management speeches on the floor. If you want to play hardball, Ray, fine. But I'm done being intimidated. You so much as step foot in this plan again, I'll see you in court. For a long moment, he just glared at me. Then he chuckled, cold, dismissive, and walked out without another word. I expected fallout, lawsuits, late-night phone calls from his lawyers. But nothing came. He disappeared as fast as he'd arrived, probably off to sniff out another desperate man to sink his teeth into. Meanwhile, that $80,000 from Mike kept us afloat. Not comfortable, not thriving, but breathing. And in those moments, I realized something. Survival isn't always about winning big. It's about holding on long enough for the storm to pass. The storm did pass, though it felt endless while we were in it. Ethan fought through round after round of chemo. There were nights I thought I'd lose him, nights I caught myself rehearsing what I'd say at his funeral. But he pulled through. Slowly, painfully, he got stronger. The business limped along too. We cut expenses, leaned on loyal clients, and clawed our way back to stability. It took years, but we made it. And here's the part that still gets me. Today, Ethan's 23, studying engineering. He wants to design better medical equipment, so kids like him won't have to suffer the way he did. When I think back, it wasn't Ray's money or Harrison Steele's promises that kept us alive. It was loyalty. Joe sticking by me. Mike trusting me enough to prepay. My wife holding our family together when I was breaking inside. I almost sold my life's work for fear. I almost let a vulture take over because I forgot what really mattered. If there's one lesson I've carried since then, it's this: protect your reputation and protect your people. Because when everything else collapses, trust is the only currency that still holds value.